This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Consult with a qualified professional before making any investment decisions.
Welcome to the Wire Weekly Roundup. The week in real estate presented in digestible bites. Hold on while our AI hosts take us on another ride through this week's top real estate headlines.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, brought to you by The Wire. Each week, we sift through a whole stack of real estate news, the latest research, all those insights, and we pull out the really important stuff for you, our listeners, the real estate pros, and, the serious enthusiasts. Our mission, simple, give you a shortcut, help you get truly informed, maybe find some surprising angles, and hopefully keep it interesting along the way. And today, wow, we are jumping right into a headline that's making waves. The $7,885 home tax, tariffs explode housing costs. This isn't just about one number, though. It's about seeing the connections, right, between the big economic picture, what's happening in the market, and how our industry itself is changing.
Exactly. The goal here is really to cut through all that noise, help you understand what's actually driving things in real estate right now, and ultimately give you the information you need to be, at the top of your game. So we'll be looking at the key stuff from the past week, not just what happened, but really why it matters to your business day in and day out.
Okay, let's tackle that big number first. The $7,885 figure, it comes from a recent UBS report suggesting tariffs could add almost $8,000 to the average cost of a new single-family home. Now, this ties into policies being discussed, particularly related to President Trump's platform for a potential second term. But what's the real impact beyond just that sticker shock?
Well, it's fascinating because it's not just like a straightforward cost for imported wood or steel, though that's part of it. These tariffs, they kind of ripple out. They create uncertainty in the financial markets. Right. And you're seeing major groups like the National Association of Realtors, NAR, that is, they're actively in D.C. right now, arguing against this stuff because of the hit to housing costs. So it's more than just a number. It's like this hidden tariff tax, It gets baked into the cost structure, and that directly squeezes buyers' budgets and sellers' margins, too. The real insight, I think, is that every single transaction is now dealing with this extra hurdle, even if it's not obvious. For you as an agent, that means having maybe deeper conversations with clients about the true all-in cost and potentially having to adjust pricing strategies to kind of account for it.
Right. And these tariff talks, they're not happening in isolation, are they? They're tangled up with everything else going on in the economy. Like last week's jobs report, which was pretty weak. You'd naturally think, okay, weak jobs might mean the Fed eases up, maybe hints at rate cuts to stimulate things, relief for borrowers.
That was definitely the speculation. A lot of people jumped to that conclusion. But here's the thing. Despite that pressure, despite the weak jobs number, the Fed, at its July meeting, they held firm. They kept rates steady.
Oh, so no relief then?
Not yet, anyway. And the market reacted almost immediately. Mortgage demand, it dropped. Fell to the lowest point since back in May. So what that tells us, I think, is that the market's still in this really delicate spot. It's trying to balance these incoming economic signals, like the jobs data, against what the Fed is actually doing. It means we're kind of in this holding pattern. Buyer confidence is still pretty fragile. And that directly impacts demand, even if other signs might look a bit more positive.
Okay, so if we're in this sort of holding pattern, this delicate balance, how's that playing out in the actual housing market? On the ground, we're getting some mixed signals there too, right? Like private residential construction spending dipped in June, which sounds like, okay, less new supply. That usually makes inventory problems worse. But is it that simple? What's behind that dip?
Yeah, it's not just a one-month blip, I don't think. That dip really reflects the ongoing struggles builders are having. Finding skilled labor is still incredibly hard. Costs for materials, lumber, steel, all the components, they're still high.
And I guess the tariffs don't help there either.
Exactly. They just add another layer of cost pressure on top of everything else. The direct result, less new housing hitting the market, which naturally makes the existing shortage worse, especially for those crucial entry-level homes buyers are desperate for. But this is where it gets kind of contradictory, right? Because on one side, you hear these reports saying, look, the housing market might be stuck like this, maybe until 2026 because of affordability and supply. Mm-hmm. But then you also had Robert Reffkin, the CEO of Compass, saying recently that there's actually more inventory than any time in the last 6 years.
Wait, hold on. More inventory. How does that work if construction is down and the market is supposedly stuck? Yeah. Are homes just sitting there?
That's the disconnect everyone's trying to figure out. Yes, homes are sitting longer, But it's not necessarily a glut of inventory across the board. It seems to be more about a mismatch. A mismatch between what sellers think their home is worth, maybe based on last year's frenzy, and what buyers can actually afford now, with current rates, and yes, those added tariff costs.
So it's the type of inventory or the price?
Exactly. It might be the wrong type of house, or maybe just priced for a market that frankly doesn't exist anymore. So the key insight for you as an agent, it isn't just about counting listings. It's about the quality, the location, and maybe most importantly, realistic pricing. It means you really got to master doing a truly honest CMA, a comparative market analysis, and probably having some tough conversations with sellers, guiding them away from that bidding war mindset to today's more measured, value-focused market. Price discovery is key right now.
Which brings us straight back to affordability. It's clearly this huge, complex issue. We know there's a new Senate affordable housing bill being discussed, trying to tackle it from the policy side. And interestingly, you mentioned some developers are actually making affordable housing projects work financially. That's actually a positive sign on the supply front, isn't it?
It is. It shows it can be done, which is encouraging. But at the same time, you have this other weird dynamic happening. You mentioned existing homes are now offered more expensive than new construction homes. How does that make sense?
Yeah, that seems backwards.
Well, it's a direct result of those builder challenges we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
New home builders have to price in today's higher labor costs, material costs, land costs, plus maybe a cushion for tariffs. An existing home, even if prices are still high overall, might offer a relatively better value, especially if the seller bought it years ago at a much lower price point. They might have more flexibility. And look, this whole market adjustment isn't just hitting the for sale side. We saw apartment rents actually tick down in July. Vacancies are climbing, hitting multi-year highs in some places.
So the rental market is softening.
It seems to be, yeah. Which just shows how varied conditions are. The housing market isn't just one thing, right? Single-family sales, multifamily rentals, even commercialing, they're all moving differently.
We're even seeing architecture firms, kind of the canary in the coal mine for future commercial projects, reporting fewer billings. It paints this really complex picture of a market that's definitely shifting and rebalancing across pretty much all sectors. All right, so the big picture is tariffs, steady rates, construction challenges, affordability crunch, some weird inventory signals. How is our industry, the brokerage world, adapting to all this? Because it feels like there's a ton of change happening there, too. You see headlines about industry leaders dogpiling on Zillow, CoStar suing Zillow over photos. It sounds like a battlefield.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
There are some major legal fights and just intense competition going on. You mentioned NAR. They just scored another significant court win related to their membership rules. That reinforces their position, their influence.
Right.
But then you look at the brokerages themselves. There's this constant churn. We're seeing really big recruiting wins for some of the more agile cloud-based firms like XP Realty and LPT. Even Remax just brought over a big 170 agent firm. And it's interesting, EXP specifically seems to have turned a corner on agent count after losing some last year. Shows their model might be resonating right now.
So it's partly about attracting agents, but it feels like it's more fundamental than that, doesn't it? It's about the business models themselves. Who owns the customer relationship? You see Compass posting its best quarter ever, and they're very explicitly going after the online portals, trying to keep the agent central. But then you also hear reports about AI potentially replacing some human roles in brokerage deals. Is AI a tool to help agents, or is it, going to fundamentally change the agent's job?
That is the question, isn't it? And honestly, every single real estate professional needs to be thinking about that right now. Look, the newer models are gaining ground, partly because they are leveraging technology and finding operational efficiencies that some older, more traditional brokerages maybe struggle with. The message seems pretty clear. The market's changing fast, and the old ways of doing things, they might not cut it anymore.
The old rules are outdated?
That's exactly it. I mean, look at Redfin. They're now actually sending some customers over to Rocket Mortgage. That shows you these shifting alliances, new strategies popping up. It's about finding efficient ways to handle leads and close deals in this super competitive space, even if it means partnering up.
Okay, this next bit. I think this is really fascinating and potentially very actionable for you listening. We talk a lot about the big guys, right? Institutional investors, hedge funds buying up houses. But there was this surprising trend highlighted from data around July 2025. Indicating that small investors, they now make up nearly a third of the market. A third! That's huge.
It really is. It's kind of staggering when you think about it. This isn't some tiny niche anymore. These small-scale investors, regular individuals, maybe small family groups buying one or two properties, they are a major force now. And for agents, for brokers, that's not just trivia. That is a massive opportunity. But it requires a different approach, doesn't it?
How so? What's different about working with them?
Well, it goes way beyond just finding them a house to buy. You need to understand their specific goals. Are they flipping? Long-term rental?
Yeah.
Short-term? It means advising on things like, okay, what's the realistic rent you can get in this specific neighborhood right now? It means connecting them with the right lenders, maybe ones who specialize in those STR mortgages or loans for Airbnb-type properties, or even just practical advice on how to manage rent collection efficiently, or basic property management tips.
So it's more consultative.
Absolutely. Think about it. You find a client who wants to buy a duplex in one of those top fixer-upper markets everyone's talking about. You're not just selling them the building. You're helping them analyze cash flow, estimate renovation costs, and potential ROI, maybe even thinking through tenant screening. It really opens up whole new ways you can provide value and build relationships with this incredibly significant and growing part of the market.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together. We've covered tariffs, the Fed, construction, inventory confusion, industry shifts, small investors. What's the big picture? What does this all mean for you, the real estate professional, sitting here in August 2025?
Yeah, if you zoom out, you see these major forces kind of converging, don't you? You've got these significant cost pressures coming from the outside, like the tariffs adding unexpected expenses. You've got this wider economic backdrop where the Fed's holding rates steady, but everyone's still guessing what happens next, creates nervousness. And then inside our own industry, you have this incredibly rapid, almost dizzying pace of change. Technology, new brokerage models, intense competition.
So the main takeaway seems pretty stark then. The market is changing, undeniably. And those old rules, the strategies that worked even just a year or two ago, they're becoming obsolete fast.
That sums it up perfectly. What worked yesterday might genuinely fail you tomorrow.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with, something to really chew on after this deep dive. Given everything we've just discussed, the pressures, the shifts, the opportunities, what specific, concrete strategies are you going to embrace or adapt in your own business right now? How will you ensure you don't just survive, but actually thrive in this dynamic, constantly evolving real estate landscape? What's your pivot going to be? And that wraps up our deep dive for this week. Hopefully a useful shortcut to getting up to speed on the trends that really matter to your business.
Yeah, we really hope these insights give you some things to think about, maybe spark some new ideas, and just help you navigate what's definitely a complex market right now.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive from The Wire. We will be back next week with more essential analysis to help you stay ahead of the curve.
If you're interested in your own personalized edition of The Wire, please visit us at thewire.fm/custom. We offer market-specific podcasts with all the latest real estate news and market analysis delivered to you weekly or monthly. Own your market with a personalized edition of The Wire, the week in real estate. Thank you for listening.